Ross Stripling, as we talk about the pitchers that are getting signed for big money on that bottom rung, Ross Stripling is head and shoulders above Mike Clevenger and Matt Boyd. I think he's a substantial step up from Zach Eflin. And if Zach Eflin is going to get 3 years, $40 million, the real question is how much is Ross Stripling going to get? Has this all of a sudden bumped him up to 3 years, $50 million? Could we see Ross Stripling get 4 years and push 60?
Well, one important distinction between Ross Stripling and Zach Eflin that works against Ross Stripling in this is that Zach Eflin,
Age.
28 years old, Ross Stripling, 33, I believe. Yeah, just turned 33 last week. That's a big factor, man. 33 is ancient as far as free agency goes.
It
No,
is.
I am aware of the fact that I just spent 5 minutes explaining why we should give a 40-year-old Justin Verlander $150 million. So I understand that 33 is not ancient compared to Justin Verlander, but
One thing Ross Stripling does have going for him is that he's never been a velo guy. He's always been a control dude, and he has four legitimate pitches that he hits his spots with. And the addition of the changeup, which has been excellent by the end of the 2022 season, really changed the type of pitcher he was. Whenever you're a pitcher that relies on control, it's a scary endeavor, obviously, because if you hit a season where you're just not hitting your spots, it can get pretty ugly because you just can't overpower dudes. But also, as you get older, like maybe Ross Stripling has a little Charlie Morton in him where he can be very effective well into his late 30s. It's a really difficult proposition to properly evaluate Ross Stripling. However, my question for you is, as we watch all of these pitchers get all this big money, should have the Blue Jays offered him a qualifying offer, it would have been $19.65 million. At the value and money that a lot of these mid-tier pitchers are getting, would 1 year of Ross Stripling for $20 million be worth it? I'm almost leaning towards it might have been.
might have been. I mean, it's going to be a forever hindsight is 2020 situation.
Of course.
Like
Of
until we
course.
see that the number he actually does get, until we see who the Jays do eventually shore up the starting rotation with, right? Like if we sign a guy who is less of a pitcher than Ross Stripling and we see Ross Stripling get big money elsewhere, then yeah, it is going to feel like, oh, that was a misfire. And, that one is just squarely on Ross Atkins' shoulder, if that's the case, right? Is
Mhm.
that is a miscalculation.
And it probably was. I think you could say the same thing with the Yankees and Jamison Tyon, just as we're watching this market unfold. But I think you're right. I think dwelling on it is silly, and hindsight is 2020. However, my guess is if Brian Cashman and Ross Atkins had a do-over, they'd probably offer the qualifying offer because both of them probably would have taken it, and it's probably worth the value to have them on your team.
Okay.
Um,
So with that in mind then, let's just operate for the next few minutes under that understanding that it was a mistake. They should have. Ross Atkins should have just put out a qualifying offer. Not guaranteed that Ross Stripling would have signed it, by the way.
no, for sure. Especially if his agent truly did feel that there was a 4 year. Listen, the AAV thing, Stripling for sure, if he's going to wind up getting, let's say, 14 million a year over 4 years, I guarantee Stripling takes that over the 1 year, $20 million, especially at 33 years of age. So if his agent is pushing him to believe that there is actual term out there for him, I think he still would have turned down the qualifying offer. Jamison Tyon, probably the same boat. But I don't know. Like, this is the thing that you mentioned, right, Adam? Hindsight, right? So now we know what the pitching landscape is like and the market is like, but the agents didn't know that either going in.
So now again, operating under that understanding that we're going to just say that is correct, a mistake was made. Should Ross Atkins overspend to make sure that we aren't taking a step back in the rotation? Like, how far should he go throwing good money after bad, as the expression goes, right? To make sure, like, what we don't want to have happen is a situation where the rotation, sure, we added to, but it is still worse than it was last year because the guy that we brought in to replace Ross Stripling is not as good as Ross Stripling, right? Should that be an okay estimate where it's like, well, we did make a mistake, but by the time we realized it, the cost of fixing that mistake is genuinely not worth it, right? Or is it just a mistake that, like, we just have to? We've painted ourselves in a corner. We need to improve. So if we have to spend a little extra, so be it. Where do you stand?
I lean towards the latter. I do kind of feel like, and this is a perfect transition into talking Jose Barrios, but I do think the play here for the Blue Jays, if they are going to, for lack of a better term, and by no means is this penny pinching, but for lack of a better term, penny pinch, I would prefer to see them go out and spend $130 million on Carlos Rodon. Again, obviously, this is not being cheap, but I would like to see them make up for this mistake. And I think somebody like Rodon is going to be an excellent pitcher for the next 4 to 5 years and going to be, if not totally worth the money, there's going to be a lot of value in overpaying for a guy like him and then betting on Jose Barrios to bounce back. And that may be what happens. If the Blue Jays go big game hunting, if they go out and land a Carlos Rodon, it is likely that maybe they do in trade go out and get a fifth starter who's going to compete for that fifth starter role with Mitch White, with Yusei Kikuchi. This is not ideal for the Blue Jays fans out there, and I feel it as well. However, I think I'm all right with that approach if you do land a stud.
Okay.
Like, think about that rotation, man. Like, even if Barrios only bounces back to his career average, which I truly believe is where our expectations should be set. So he's going to go, and if you look at his career average, it's right around a 4 ERA. He pitches about 180 to 200 innings a year. He's going to log innings for you. And if that's your number 4 pitcher, yeah, you're overpaying him a little bit, but that's pretty darn good. And that's a pretty solid top 4 in the rotation. And yeah, none of us necessarily want to watch Yusei Kikuchi every 5th start or Mitch White every 5th start. But, you
If
know,
the first four are that good, yeah, I understand.
where are you at?
I don't know. I, as a general life feeling, I don't like the idea of throwing good money after bad money to chase a mistake. You know, it's that sunk cost fallacy that I hate. Um, if it's gone, it's gone, and it sucks. But I would rather. I think I would rather not uh, go all in on a move that, if it doesn't work out, is going to make things that much worse for us. I
And
mean,
this is where I think the front office is going to evaluate the risk. And this is where maybe Carlos Rodon does make more sense than, let's say, a Justin Verlander, because there is more risk with a guy who's 40 years old than a guy
mhm.
who's going into his age 30 season. There just is. There's a decade of difference.
Yeah, I mean, like, ultimately last year we watched ourselves miss out big time at the trade deadline because we didn't have the assets to spend at the trade market, right? We had depleted the cupboards. Uh, what did we say all year? That we had a lot of elite pitching talent, but that it was in Vancouver. Most of those guys are going to be in AAA
Yes,
at
they
some
are.
point this season.
And this is where maybe you're right. And I feel like, so let's say it this way.
Like
I
could
want a
we
guy
just
in this rotation. I want a Carlos Rodon.
sure?
But I am almost fine with not addressing that 5th spot and rolling the dice on Mitch White and Yusei Kikuchi. I know that there's going to be commenters here who think I'm crazy, but maybe you do bet on the fact that Semro Burst and Ricky Tiedemann take big steps forward again and can maybe contribute to this rotation midseason. Maybe you do bet on the fact that there are guys that are just getting to the point where they could help this organization. I hope no one thinks that this is me cheaping out, by the way. I'm just kind of looking at it like if you're going to
No,
spend
look,
130, 140 million dollars on a Carlos Rodon, there is going to be a budget limit. Like you can't just spend.
here's another idea that's just, again, poorly formulated in my head, but I'm going to say it anyways. What if the plan is, okay, we've messed up on Ross Stripling. We're still good enough to be a slightly over 500 team as it is for the first half of the season. Come trade deadline, we're going to have chips like Ricky Tiedemann, like Semro Burst, like Yosfer Zulueta to
Mm-hmm.
go out and get a Sandy Alcantara, who I know the Marlins are saying we are not getting rid of this kid. And I know he's on a very team friendly deal. But three young, high ceiling prospects coming back. I don't know. Sandy Alcantara would look good in a Jays uniform,
Of course he would. Of course he would. He's like the best pitcher in baseball. I would love that.
right?
I think everything we've just said and talked about for free agency really does skew the way the Blue Jays are going to operate. There are going to be trades. I think a catcher is going to be moved despite a lot of people's fear of it being the wrong one. Or it's so funny because, like, man, we have been on the Danny Jansen train all year. We have said that he is the guy who's got to stay. Yesterday, we did a video for the first time presenting a Danny Jansen trade. And like literally, people were losing their mind like we're idiots and had never thought about this. So we appreciate
Yeah.
all you walk-off community members who have been with us for a while and understand that we're just
Hey, love, hate, it all helps the algorithm. So bring it on.
it really does. It really does. And with the prices of free agency, yeah, maybe they do go and get a Rodon. And if they do, I think, you're going to see the outfield addressed in trade. You're going to see secondary depth for starting pitching addressed in trade. Any bullpen pieces are addressed in trade. I think this team does have one big mega contract left in them, but I don't think they have two. So if we're out there, if there's any Blue Jays fans who are saying, bring me Carlos Rodon and Trey Turner, not happening. Temper
Fair
those
enough.
expectations.
Fair enough. All right, Ross Stripling. We'll just end it with this then. Value certainly going up. Congratulations to him for a heck of a season. And
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
no,
Love Ross.
great guy. Great guy.
Chicken Strip is going to get paid. And what a long, winding road to get there, right? Swingman, bullpen piece, toiled away in Los Angeles, never really given a chance to start, always spot starting here and there. Very similar with the Toronto Blue Jays. Basically become a starter out of necessity when Hyun-Jin Ryu went down. Saved the Blue Jays 2022
He did.
season. Unsung hero of the year. And now, buddy, he very well could get $50 million
Pretty cool.
for that effort. Pretty darn. So hello, walk-off community. We have a big guest appearing on Wednesday. Of course, we are in the middle of the baseball meetings and news is going to be breaking. Stuff is going to be happening. And we're so thrilled to have back on the show from Blue Jays Central and Sportsnet, former Expos catcher, Joe Siddall. So feel free to drop any questions you may have for Joe in the comments below, or you can join the Discord link in the show notes and get your questions in there. Joe Siddall this Wednesday. Subscribe and like, everybody. Thanks for following along. Cheers.